I guess I'm kind of on here just to shed my perspective because a lot of people need it. A lot of people need different perspectives on their lives right now because so many things are happening in the world and nobody knows exactly what to do about it. A lot of us feel lost. We're all relying on Bernie Sanders and some old people to tell us exactly how things function. I mean, the generations don't believe in generations anymore. The older generation doesn't really believe in Gen Z, and Gen Z really doesn't even believe in itself because it doesn't know what the fuck to do about this shit. It was their problem. Now they're just trying to put it on us, but they raised us to literally kind of not give a fuck. Like when you really think about it, when you're a child and you're growing up and your parents hand you some fucking tablet or an iPhone and say, "Hey, have at it." And especially in like today's era, like any kid born in 2020 who's just on their tablet now I mean, I feel like it encourages mental illness, you know? Mental illness as in what the mind looks like when it's detached from its rational and natural responses, to life and how things work. I'm not some fucking PhD psychologist, so you shouldn't really take my word for it, but I don't really consider myself to be stupid either, and a lot of people for whatever reason value my judgment, so here I am. I just feel like, and it's not even like I feel. It's like we all know that this world right now is so cold and it's so lonely. I mean, people are so divided. People are just lost. And I feel like I wanna give you guys a little bit of insight into like who we actually are as human beings. We as human beings aren't exactly just savage animals who only want to fuck and kill things. We have emotions, we have intuition, we have confidence, we have comfortability, compatibility. We have all these abstract character qualities that we apply to our everyday lives, yet, nobody really knows who to follow anymore. And I mean, whenever we do follow these people, they're all old, like Dave Chappelle, Cat Williams. We can't let our entertainment industry die just because it's filled with a bunch of corrupted people. I feel like the entertainment industry definitely needs to be refined, but we also need to reinstate and establish a new organization, one that's surrounded by like a moral code so that even our women and the children feel safe and protected whenever they are actually, working in Hollywood and stuff like that. But I mean, what do we really trust in this day and age? The men and the women, they don't trust each other. They always cheat, and then somebody ends up having to be a single parent. You know, um, Culture and politics. The culture and the government, they don't see eye to eye anymore. And you could tell whenever you watched Trump's inauguration, it was so colorless, it was so gray, and it was because it wasn't backed by the people. It's not backed by the people in this country. Let me make that known. It is not backed by the people in this country. It is not backed by the people outside of this country. He's over here trying to buy fucking Greenland and, put tariffs on and expand tariffs on other countries. And it's like, everybody's looking at this dude like you're fucking nuts, bro. You might have been America, but you're not using this money to actually help out with it. And I mean, honestly, it's not really surprising. All that I'm really saying right now isn't anything new. I mean, even Tupac Shakur was calling this dude out back in 1994. So it's almost 30 years ago. People have been telling us, hey, watch out for this businessman who only prioritizes greed and money over the well being of people and, subjects, people who have offered up their rights so that we as a nation and a country can actually be civilized and orderly. It's just hard. It's hard. And I kind of wanted to dive into like who we are. You know, I know I already said that once, but I kind of want to get spiritual. I kind of want to get philosophical. I kind of want to get intellectual, and I want to get into the analytics of what it really means to be a human being. And I mean, who better to ask than another human being? And the only reason why I'm making this video, and the only reason why I say that is because everybody tries to tell you how you ought to go about your life as if who you are isn't already inscribed somewhere innately in your head. Instead, it's like, all right, this is how you talk to girls, okay? Instead, it's like this is how you get mentally better. This is a motivational video. This is how you make music. And it's like we depend so heavily on the things outside of us that we don't even know who the fuck we are. Falling in love. I've met people who are 30, 40 years old who have spent so much of their life sculpting their character and their personalities around people who really didn't value them for what they really are. I have pretty much been single my entire life. I'm actually really boring. I used to meditate, I do yoga. I used to love to dance. I'm not really into that anymore. I need to find people. I need to rediscover that happiness, because, well, COVID really hit my generation really hard. And I am of Gen Z. I was born in 2002. It's just, COVID really hit us hard. And I don't think everybody truly understands the significant impact that it actually had on us. People make videos of it, people make, psychological videos of it, but it's not really ever said by somebody who is of Generation Z, which is where I come in, because I am of this generation. And after watching a couple of videos, because you have to do your research, um, I had found out by, I can't remember her name. I'll probably like add it. I'll probably edit it in, but I can't remember her name. But she was this psychologist on YouTube who talks about how isolation affects the mind. And when you're alone for a lot of the time, which a lot of us were through COVID and watching phones, or well, yeah, pretty much just viewing our phones, scrolling up and down, we developed a really innocent but unnatural habit that has detached us from each other and completely dissolved our social structure as men and women and just as a culture and as a community. A lot of us aren't on the same page about how to identify things anymore, and it's so confusing out here. A lot of people live in fear. We don't know whether or not if we say this, we're going to piss off these people. If we say that, we're going to piss off these people. And I mean, life, honestly, according to me, or at least not life, but culture in itself is supposed to be an anarchy where people can come out and say all that they want to say. But this is where the fear mongering sort of comes in because of cancel culture, which was derived entirely out of like actual campaigns like BLM and the transsexual community or the LGBTQ community. And, now all of a sudden you come out here, you say the hard R, you get canceled. I personally would just say it like outright because, well, to me, it's just a word. It's neutral. I would just say nigger because for me, I mean, I grew up. That was all I was ever called. I was called nigger. I was called negro. I was called nigga. I was hardly ever called Tristan. Now that I think about it, I was always called somebody else. They always called me Tyrone or Adam or something other than who I actually was. And now I'm at the point where I'm like 22 years old and I don't even talk to my family, even though we all live in the exact same house. You know, I do sit down, I listen to them, but I don't feel like I have any right to project myself or express myself because they don't understand me. And even when I do try to come out and say something, it's not like they actually, you know, pick up on it for what I'm saying. It's just I've gone too far, like just being quiet. It's to the point where my own family doesn't really know who I am. I'm just quiet, and that's all they get to know. Even though I have all these crazy ideas and all these dreams that I actually want to achieve, but again, I don't have any way of relating to them. COVID hit, and I was alone for a long time. And the psychological analysis on that part and how it affects your brain is how it numbs your hippocampus. And that's not the only gland it affects, but it does affect certain sensors and glands in the brain that makes it so that the activity in your mind feels dull and stagnant. And the only way to really combat this type of disease is with reading. Learning a new language, committing your mind to something, working out. And if you're really just like an anti-social type of person, there are ways that you can still be sharp as ever because you will have to interact with people, but you can still just understand you above all. And then there's the social structure, which complements it because now you really do have to think fast and orderly so that you fit in with these people, so that you say the right words and not the wrong ones. And that's just a little bit of insight from the doctor. But I also kind of wanted to get into, us as human beings and why we don't necessarily need to depend on government conventions or social media pamphlets or propaganda. I mean, they're not pamphlets, but they're they're videos, and I mean, another problem, because there's no way you can talk about this and not come and not see all the problems in it, is that YouTube no longer really has like a creative filter. It's more of a business filter. I go on there and I literally only use it for the news. And it sucks because it's like, well, then what the fuck is the point of a news channel if I'm already watching it on YouTube and I can get everything I need off of YouTube? And it's hard to find like adults out here that actually want to create some real content and entertain people for whatever given reason they want to entertain people. This obviously isn't one of those videos. I'm just rambling right now, and thank you for staying this long if you already have. It really does mean a lot to me to know that I'm being heard. It means a lot. It really does. You have no fucking clue, or maybe you do based off of the context I gave you, but that's for in case you were actually listening. um so who we really are is like human beings. Why people do the things they do. Why does Kanye walk around and call himself Jesus or Yeezus? Why do men, like, just in general, do that? They always get hooked up on this ego trip, and then they think, oh, I am God, and they go about their lives being fucking crazy and nuts. And I feel like there's actually a little bit of justification behind it. I don't necessarily condone the acts of what a lot of people do, or what a lot of people who claim to be someone they're not, and then do the things that they do, like Kanye claiming to be Jesus and then displaying a naked girl on the red carpet, because that's not something Jesus would have done, at least in my eyes. Or there was like this other cult somewhere around the world. He claimed to be Muhammad or some shit, the prophet, and he defiled the name. Basically, he did some bullshit, and nobody really approved of it. But why do people do that? Why do we have to sit back and say that, okay, no, I am God? Where the fuck does that even come from? Why? How do we even know God? Nobody really knows his name. Nobody really has ever really spoken to him. And whenever we do talk about him, it's not like it's easily relatable. In fact, it's really easy to confuse in most cases. And I kind of want to clarify why we even believe in God at all. And my theory is that consciousness, or well, that we as human beings, we carry universal attributes. Universal attributes like consciousness, universal attributes like sound, universal attributes like character and personality, or universal characteristic, or universal attributes like beauty. We as human beings, we carry these things. And I feel like consciousness is just the internal reflection of your physical body, and that it's actually an attribute, like a direct attribute of God. So that's why whenever you're really in your head, or whenever you trip shrooms, or you meditate, or you pray, or you sit there and you just talk to God for a minute, that's how he's listening to you. He's listening to you through your conscience, but your conscience actually has to be clear. If your conscience isn't clear and you're thinking about pornography, or you're thinking about drugs, you're thinking about just anything basically that keeps you distracted from a higher self, is, you know, why it's why we, think of ourselves as gods, but then make horrible decisions. So we have these universal attributes like consciousness that make us gods, but we always choose the instinct. For whatever reason, we always have to choose the instinct. With a lot of people, whenever they choose the instinct, I mean, I feel like it kind of boils down to, because I said the higher self, it kind of boils down to free will versus determinism, because you're free to make whatever decision you want. It's your choice, and that belongs to you always. But there's also determinism, like, is everything really meant to happen? Did this happen for a reason, or did it not have to happen? I mean, how can you sit there and say that people get raped for a reason? Determinism definitely does have its flaws given the context, but you know, determinism is also like super naturally direct. It's really it gives you a sense of direction, or it fulfills you with a sense of purpose. Because determinism, if we really reduce determinism versus free will down to what they actually are, it boils down to choice and destiny. Now, when it comes to choice, it's like, okay, you're free to make whatever decision you want. Even the devil was able to revolt against God and end up leaving heaven for somewhere much worse. That was his choice. And even God was like, hey, go ahead, you do that. And he was miserable as fuck, and that's why he doesn't have confidence. He has intellect and he just knows everything and tries to undermine the people's soul by, you know, making us feel like we don't belong. And unfortunately, it can be seen in a lot of people as well. Unfortunately. Sorry about that, but where was I? I was on free will and determinism. How, when you boil them down, they really just come down to destiny and choice. And where I rely on this scale is determinism. I feel like everything happens for a reason. We all have a purpose, and I feel like free will is what's responsible for the people who choose to do drugs and choose to, defile one another. I feel like people have a choice in doing random things that don't necessarily help them function. You know what I mean? I feel like there is, life in itself is a challenge. You don't necessarily have to go out and, try to find it. Life will just hit you as hard as it can. And, you can either choose to avoid it or you can face it like a man. And you can, fear everything and run, or face everything and rise. And, that's your choice. That's your choice. But I feel like that's a lot of that is true. You know, that like God is within us, and that we have to search for Him within us and really open ourselves up to Him, so that we actually are examples of what other people can follow through with. That means to not doubt yourself. It means to not fear anything. It's to just go. It's to literally free yourself from Him, though. Because another dilemma is where people believe in God, but they feel like it becomes really, really strict. Determinism can be a very strict ethic and mode of life. Because I mean, you can see that in a lot of Christians and Catholics. They live very strict lives out of determinism. So I guess it just has its drawbacks, but yeah, I think everybody has a destiny. We all have a purpose. We all have a light within us, and it all needs to be discovered. And in these dark times, it needs to shine. So I'm coming out here talking about what I believe in, even if nobody sees this shit, saying what's on my mind.